Hello, everybody. It's time for some answers for Daily Dictation 394. Yeah, strange video. Let's listen again.
This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video.
This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video. You guys did great. Very, very nice job. Yeah, do you like the new style for daily dictation answers? Yes. This is what we're doing in DDM classes. Now it's kind of new. We're using a different system. Anyway, the answers. This deer, you guys had no problems. This deer kept. Now, we have the word kept here. And we have this P and this T sound, right? Right here, PT. So perfect pronunciation, kept, 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 kept. The faster we say it, we're going to stop the P, kept, and then inside the mouth, we'll go to the T. So I stop the P, kept, and then inside the mouth, I move the tongue to the T position, kept, and I stop. And that is what the speaker does. Kept rubbing, kept rubbing, kept rubbing. So we hear not only the P stopping, but that T is also stopping. Very tough, but you guys did a great job. And then we come back rubbing, rubbing. This deer kept rubbing, kept rubbing, kept rubbing his head. Now, when we say this really fast, this H in his disappears. And it disappears down here too. So rubbing his, we should say rubbing his, but what happens is we say rubbing is, rubbing his head, and then we go ahead and keep this H. Okay? Now we have a special rule called the 7 H's, and yeah, we talk about that in DDM, and you can get free DDM lessons. I'll tell you in a minute how to get the free lessons. Anyway, rubbing his head. This deer kept rubbing his head. Now, we can stop this D sound and say head, and then start fresh and say on a teenager. And by the way, the American pronunciation, Anna. And we have linking here, on a teenager. So listen, if we stop the D in head, this deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager. The other thing we can do is we can actually link the sound. So listen to that. This deer kept rubbing his head on a, head on a, head on a. It's like a flap T, very similar to a flap T. It's a very fast D. Head on a teenager. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach. Now, some students kind of hear teenagers. No. Now, we do have an S here, but it's a teenager, meaning singular. So there's no S here. But yeah, it's kind of confusing, right? I understand. On a teenager sitting on a, once again, sitting on a beach in British Columbia. British Columbia is the name of a province in Canada. It's a proper noun, so we should have a big B and a big C. British Columbia. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his. Okay, now, just like up above, rubbing is, as is, that H can disappear. We should say as his, but we don't. Often, and in this case, we say as is, as his mom, and her pronunciation a little bit mom. I think the woman who's speaking, she's got an Eastern accent. The United States, the Eastern, maybe New York, I'm not sure. Her name is, I think, Jeannie Moose, I think is her name. Yeah. Anyway, she does a mom, kind of a New York style accent. Most Americans are going to say mom, just like on, on, and mom, and shot. These O's are all the same pronunciation. So let's stick with mom. As his mom shot, as his mom shot the video. As his mom shot the video. Too easy. Let's say it really slow. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video. One more, just like that. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video. A little bit faster. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video. One more. This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video. Listen again.
This deer kept rubbing his head on a teenager sitting on a beach in British Columbia as his mom shot the video.
So, can you hear it? I hope so. Now, so the story is really simple, and actually this video is part of a much bigger video that we studied, my students and I studied in DDM 133. So if you're interested in that lesson, if you just want to buy that lesson, down below in the description, you can do that. Just say, I want to buy the lesson for DDM 133. And actually, the whole lesson is not about deer. It's about something else. It's about rubbing. Anyway, this segment, we see a deer. Is the deer rubbing its head on the teenage boy? Not really. What do we call those things? Yes, some people want to say horns, but they're not horns. We actually call them antlers, okay? Antlers. So the deer is rubbing its, and it is a male. It's a male deer, so we can say his. The deer is rubbing his antlers on a teenager, on a teenage boy, and the teenage boy is sitting on a beach where in British Columbia in Canada as his mom shot the video. This is dangerous, guys. This is dangerous. Now, what the deer is doing is on its antlers, it has something called velvet. And in the late summer, the velvet becomes very itchy. So what the deer does is it rubs its antlers, usually on a tree, because it's itchy, and the velvet will come off. Yeah, this is the idea. So I guess the deer, it doesn't like the boy. The deer just sees the boy, and the deer thinks the boy is a tree. Yeah, I feel sorry. Believe me, the boy, it's a really cute picture, but it's dangerous because deer are wild animals. And when the deer rubs its head on the boy, it's gotta hurt. Yeah, where I live, we have lots of deer. And I have never had a deer come up to me to rub its antlers on my head. I hope it never happens. So that's it. There you go. The answers, a little bit of explanation for DD Daily Dictation Challenge number 394. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get the full lesson, again, it's from DDM 133, and you can sign up and get free lessons. We're giving one perf lesson and 2 DDM lessons. Perf is about speaking. DDM is this, full listening lessons We would love for you to try out those lessons. And if you like those lessons, join us. Mastering English can be lots of fun if you study with us. Take care, guys. Bye bye.